Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name's Peter Munro. I'm a partner in our Sydney office, and we've got a great topic we'd like to share with you today. Creating sustainable shared value, and our premise is it's everybody's responsibility. The basic premise is, in essence, that if we take a look at society, it's no longer possible for businesses alone to merely pursue profits and then say all of the externalities government will take care of. Government and businesses need to work much more collaboratively to address this topic if we're really going to make the big strides on a lot of the social, environmental, and other issues that we face.
My passion in the topic really started about 5 years ago when Michael Porter and Mark Kramer first wrote the seminal article in the Harvard Business Review around shared value. And we then worked with the United Nations to actually define what that means for corporations and a strategy to actually deliver shared values. So what is shared value? Well, let me submit what it certainly isn't. It certainly is not corporate social responsibility. It certainly is not corporate philanthropy. And it most certainly is not just about feel good. It is core business strategy. It is very systematically, ruthlessly, and strategically identifying areas where you can do well as a business, but also have a positive impact on the community.
Like, why would BHP Billiton, a big miner, want global economic growth and support the Millennium Development Goals? And the answer is quite simple. If you have broad-ranging economic growth, people want more steel, more copper and more aluminium. And guess what? They have iron, they have copper and they have aluminium. Whose job is shared value? Let me walk through a couple of examples and then we can see whose job it is. Nestlé is a very interesting company and a lot of people know the Nestlé issue. Work with a lot of small-scale farmers, particularly in the developing world. I need, as Nestlé, for Nespresso or Nescafe or whichever one product they have, a good supply of high-quality, regular coffee beans. Is it in my pure business interest to improve the stock of coffee beans? Answer, yes. And if you're in the developing world, is it in my business interest to improve the productivity and the outcome and the quality of small-scale farmers' crops? Answer, yes. Is it in the small-scale farmer's interest to have the quality of his or her crop improved? Answer, yes, it is. So it's in the pure business interest of Nestlé to make sure all of their farmers in their supply chain are providing good quality beans. They therefore get better productivity for their land, better income for their crop over the long period of time. That is shared value. The world's leading anti-malaria program is not run by Save the Children, Oxfam, World Health Organization, or even the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It is run by BHP Billiton. In Mosul, Mozambique, they have an aluminium smelter. They have lowered adult malaria infection in that area from 92% of the population to 5.6%. In doing so, the improved community health has reduced absenteeism in the workforce from 22% to 2%. That's improved the productivity of their asset, the aluminium smelter, by an amount higher than the cost of the program. In other words, the anti-malaria program is directly, measurably profitable. There are three legs of sustainability. There is environmental sustainability, and we love to talk about it, and we must. There is social sustainability, and we love to talk about it, and we must. But there's also financial sustainability. If you don't have that third leg, the other two will fall over. And the interesting thing about the BHP anti-malaria program, it started many, many years ago, well before Porter and Kramer wrote Reinventing Capitalism. It started off as a corporate social responsibility program. And when the bean counters came in to shut it down because it was an expense line item and did the maths and went, it's actually a net contribution to the bottom line, when are they going to shut it down? Never. And they've actually taken the expenses part of building the program out of the CSR budget line and just whacking it in the staffing budget line, where it sits, where it's directly linked to the measurable profitability. This is a really interesting graph. When impact investing started being talked about, or ethical investing started being talked about 15 years ago, the sell was take a 1 or a 2% cut in your return to be good. That was the sell. And then the data starts to come out and we see something really surprising. Responsible investing, ethical investing, over 10 years, 5 years, 3 years and 1 year outperform the market. You're not actually taking a cut in your return, you're getting a superior return for doing the good thing. Why? Because doing the right thing lowers your long-term risk. It's actually really simple.
So on this page, we've just drawn out a generic value chain, input, development, distribution, fulfillment. Of course, it's got to be tailored to your purpose. The point in this is every part of your value chain has certain business elements. Now, these are typically either business assets, physical, human, financial, or they are partners, supply chain partners, for instance, which have a sphere of influence in the local community or environment. And the point around this is to see that sphere of influence and the touch points with the local community and environment, and to then ask the asset test, well, is there a possibility to keep utilizing that business element while also creating positive impact? I'll take Novo Nordisk. This is a very interesting example. So Novo Nordisk invested in the fight against diabetes in China. So in the next 15 years, the number of diabetics in China is expected to be twice what it is today, and the second largest insulin market in the world. What Novo Nordisk realized was in order to break into the market, they needed to do something different. So what they did was invest in physician training, patient education, and local production of insulin. Within a few years, they have gone from 0 to 63% of the market share in the insulin area. Now, that is shared value. That is not just about doing good for physicians or patients. That's actually about creating a whole new market and establishing market share presence. Why measure it? Well, it makes it real. It makes it compelling. That's what senior management look at and go, right, I get it. Not the touchy-feely part, the numbers. Info Exchange is a non-for-profit organization that engages in grassroots activities around providing information and communication services to households. And they run an initiative called Digital Inclusion Initiative, which is around wiring up housing estates. So they started with the Atherton Gardens estate in Fitzroy in Victoria. But the question was, what value are we creating out of this digital inclusion initiative? We looked at 4 key areas of benefits: education, employment, communication, transactions, and health and well-being. Think about these housing estates. These are usually migrants, usually low levels of education. And so if you're able to provide them computers and are able to make them computer literate and hook them onto the internet, the residents derive greater educational benefits. They become more financially literate. What's an indicator for that which is measurable? Well, there are certain residents that were not employed before the program that are now employed, or there might be certain residents that were at a certain job level and with their increased literacy skills have got a better job. The point is, this is measurable. We found that $5.5 million were created in terms of social value, $5.36 for every dollar invested. But at least this organization is taking a crack and actually putting a stake on the ground and saying, we are delivering shared value and we are able to measure it. This might not be the best way to measure it, however, it's a start. And we are a leading organization in this area.
So the question then becomes, how do I institutionalize this? As an organization, what am I going to do now to get the virtuous cycle of thinking shared value going within my organization? And we would submit that, as we saw, it really cuts through the entire organization. It's a question of pushing this into the responsibility of the entire business. We can reconceive the way we think about the strategic planning process, for instance, and say, I want the strategic plan to create the normal financial returns that you're expecting, but also the shared value that you will be creating in the process of conducting your business. And it's with this in mind that I'm hoping to create a few crusaders amongst the group here to sort of go back and think a little bit differently about their jobs, the businesses, the purpose of the organizations that we work for, and the full potential of the companies that we actually work for. Because I can assure you one thing is, none of them are really living up to their full potential.